where you start and then they didn't turn on the camera. So welcome to all of you to, as I say, the best side event that you'll attend here. Nitrogen has moved up the political agenda, and there have been a lot of events. It's very difficult. A lot of events that have been happening during the COP on nitrogen. We have a number of objectives for this side event. That's to emphasize the critical importance of sustainable nitrogen management in addressing climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, to highlight the outcomes of the International Nitrogen Assessment and its implications for global nitrogen management, to foster dialogue on the necessity of international cooperation and multilateral actions to effectively manage nitrogen, and to demonstrate how sustainable nitrogen management can contribute to achieving the SDGs targets and addressing the triple planetary boundary. I'm going to introduce our 4 speakers and then work through inviting them onto the stage. So our first speaker will be Ms. Romina Kushielala, and she's the coordinator of the Prime Minister on Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, senior official from the Ministry of Climate Change, from the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And then we have Mr. Matsuoui Kuveta, the Vice Minister of Global Environmental Affairs, the Government of Japan. He has been involved in 30 years of experience in the environment, climate change, and waste management, regenerated materials division and various positions, including Director General of the Environmental Management Bureau. He's Director of the Climate Change Policy Division. Then we have Mr. Tristan Bosini, who's the Secretary of State for the Ministry of Environment, Waters and Forests in the government of Romania, with about 13 years of experience in the public sector, both at the local and central level. He was appointed Secretary of State within the Ministry of Environment, Water and Forestry in December 2022, and is responsible for the coordination of Romania's Recovery and Resilience Plan team and of the Romanian Waters Administration, National Administration. Our final speaker will be Bruno Osni, is the Deputy Director of the Ecosystems Division of the UN Environment Programme. He previously served as the UNEP Regional Director for Europe, based in Geneva, which covers 54 countries in the pan-European region and the EU. A career over 20 years of experience. So I'm going to ask Romina if she would come up and speak, and then as she finishes, you've all got 5 minutes. So yeah, it's tough, but hopefully that will be done, and then we'll invite the rest of you to come up to follow. Thank you very much.
I'll try to finish it. Well, thank you very much. Distinguished Chair, honored guests, esteemed delegates, and respected speakers, very good afternoon and good evening. And good morning, wherever from the part of the world people are listening, watching. And I'm so great to hear that it's going to be one of the best events. I like it. Thank you for giving me 5 minutes. Well, it's my privilege to welcome you all to this very important side event, Sustainable Nitrogen Management Collaborative Solutions for Climate Action, Environment and Food Security. On behalf of the Government of Pakistan, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to the honorable speakers from the Government of Japan, Mr. Yukata, Vice Minister, and Mr. Bisani, Secretary of the State of the Government of Romania, technical experts, Professor Mark, Dr. Tariq Aziz, and Ms. Ernie, and the representative from FAO, UNFCCC, and various organizations, audience, both online and in the pavilion too. Your presence today is a testament of the importance of the global collaboration in addressing nitrogen management challenges. Nitrogen, as well as we all know it's a fundamental to life on Earth. It is central to agriculture productivity, food security, and environmental health. However, its mismanagement has become a significant global issue, leading to air and water pollution, biodiversity loss, and contributing to climate change. On the other hand, insufficient nitrogen in many regions limits agricultural yields, exacerbating food insecurity and economic hardship. Recent launch of a global nitrous oxide assessment has further highlighted the need for its amendment and potential co-benefits for ecosystem, food security, biodiversity, conservation, and health. This side event underscored the need of innovative and collaboration solutions to balance nitrogen use sustainability. We aim to delve into actionable strategies that align with our broader climate action, environmental conservation, and food security objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan recognized the critical role of nitrogen management in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs). Though the shape of Pakistan in total greenhouse share into though the share of Pakistan into total greenhouse gas emission is less than 1%, yet we are highly vulnerable to climate change. We are concerned and committed to sustainable development. We have initiated programs like the Green Pakistan Program, Living in This Initiative, and the National Park Preservation Programs to mitigate environmental challenges and enhance resilience. Our collaboration have produced national nitrogen strategies and policy reports that integrated global best practices. With these efforts, we hope to pave the way for further progress, including the submissions of a third resolution of sustainable nitrogen management at UNEA A7 building upon the successes of previous resolutions led by South Asia. Moreover, we are working for South Asia roadmap towards sustainable nitrogen management in the region under the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program. To all our dear delegates and participants, your engagement today demonstrates your shared commitment to a sustainable future. This event is a platform for exchanging ideas, building partnerships, and driving actionable solutions. Together, we can amplify the global discourse on nitrogen management and its integration into climate and environmental strategies. I want to acknowledge the invaluable contributions of our co-organizers and supporters. UNEP for its global leadership and guidance in environmental governance. INMS for its pioneering efforts in advancing scientific understanding and policies on nitrogen management. Compassion in World Financing, CIWF, for advocating sustainable and ethical terming practices. South Asia Nitrogen Hub and University of Agriculture, Faizabad, for their dedication to research stakeholders, engagement, and policy development in the region and in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, let's seize this opportunity to chart a collaborative pathway forward. With innovation, determination, and shared responsibility, we can protect our planet, ensure food security, and promote sustainable development. In the end, I just really want to thank you again, all of you, for your presence, for your contribution. I wish you all the productivity and a great inspiration and a way forward for all of us. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good afternoon. Distinguished delegates and participants. I'm sorry for my bad voice, but I'd like to extend my gratitude, sincere gratitude to the government of Pakistan for hosting this important event on sustainable nitrogen management at COP28. Sorry, COP29, sorry, and as well as UNEA 6. This continuity is very important for us to maintain our discussions and exchanges. Thank you very much. Nitrogen is an essential material, nutrient for our life. Still, its excessive use has a significant adverse effect on the environment, including air and water pollution. Sustainable nitrogen management contributes to solve triple planetary crisis. Toward sustainable nitrogen management, it is important to understand the holistic material flow of nitrogen and the balance of input and output globally, and then consider effective measures. Furthermore, since the issues of nitrogen management vary from region to region, country to country, we believe it necessary to consider actions based on the situations of each regions. With that, I'd like to share my Japan's experience. First of all, I'd like to introduce two initiatives being implemented by the National Institute for Environmental Studies in Japan regarding the latest nitrogen cycle. National Institute for Environmental Studies published the Global Nitrous Oxide N2O Balance 2024, which covers the major sources and sinks of nitrous oxide in detail. In the last 40 years, from 1980 to 2020, the total amount of N2O nitrous oxide emissions in the world has increased by about 40%, indicating that agricultural activities are the most major source of anthropogenic emissions of N2O. In recent years, the concentration of N2O in the atmosphere has been rising at a rate that exceeds our expectations, and it is necessary to proceed with the reduction of emissions as soon as possible based on this report. The result highlights the need for a network to monitor and model nitrous oxide on Earth. The other initiative is related to artificial satellite. National Institute for Environmental Studies plans to launch greenhouse gases observation satellite, GW. This is a third satellite of greenhouse gas observation satellites. And it will be capable of observing nitrogen dioxide, NO2, concentration, in addition to carbon dioxide and methane. Yes. Since nitrogen dioxide is an air pollutant, caused third generation, along with land-based observation, will provide us data to plan air pollution measures, especially developing countries where numbers of land observation equipment is limited. Next, please let me introduce the achievement and challenges of nitrogen management in my country, Japan. In the 1950s and 60s, rapid population and economic growth caused devastating environmental pollution in Japan, and health of significant numbers of people were affected and lost their lives. Since then, Japan has been taking various measures for air and water pollution control, and setting standards for exhaust gases such as nitrogen oxide, as well as wastewater standards for nitrate and nitrite nitrogen. As a result of stringent measures, significant improvements were made in air and water environment at Japan. However, there are some remaining challenges. For instance, the impact of nutrient shortages on fishery resources has become an issue. In enclosed coastal area in recent years, rather than the excess nutrients. So lack of nutrients rather than pollution. This is the situation in Japan. In addition, as a climate change mitigation measure, the use of ammonia as fuel is expected to increase in the coming years. Ammonia as fuel for ship or other hard-abated areas. It is necessary to balance such activities and reducing emissions into the atmosphere environment. In order to tackle these challenges, Japan formulated the National Action Plan on Sustainable Nitrogen Management in this September, after multiple discussions among relevant ministries and experts in accordance with the UN resolution on sustainable nitrogen management, and we are committed to implement this newly formulated plan. Now we have ready for work whole of the government work. Yes. In addition, we are committed to contribute to further discussion on nitrogen management while sharing our knowledge and experience. Japan has led the activities through the Acid Deposition Monitoring Network in East Asia and Water Environment Partnership in Asia. We have also led several programs such as sharing knowledge and experience, promoting capacity building, and supporting introduction of technologies through model project with the coordination with relevant countries. We are certain that such data will continue to deepen the understanding of sustainable nitrogen management. Let's contribute to solve triple planetary crisis by achieving sustainable nitrogen management. Thank you very much for your attention.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure and privilege to represent Romania at this special event. Our country has a long history of promoting sustainable nitrogen management at both national and international levels. At national level, for the past 20 years, the Ministry of Environment focused on specific investment in manure management and waste treatment while implementing several countrywide awareness programs for nitrogen management. It is our ambition to promote best practice around the globe. Currently, it is widely acknowledged that the global economy faces significant inefficiency in nitrogen use, as 80% of the reactive nitrogen is lost into the environment, leading to water and air pollution, treating human health, affecting biodiversity, and accelerating climate change. Nitrates are responsible for eutropical and affect the potability of groundwater. Ammonia is a strong air pollutant, while nitrous oxide is an important and persistent contributor of climate change. Nitrogen plays a crucial role in ensuring food security, being a key component of fertilizer. The challenge we face today is minimizing the nitrogen loss rather than use of fertilizers. Enhancing nitrogen efficiency requires research, policy preparation, and implementation. Monitoring and evaluation, and above all, raising awareness at all levels, starting with political and policy levels. At administrative level, the main challenge remains to prepare and integrate policy across sectors. On this path, the cooperation with other entities and multi-level environmental agreements at international level will be instrumental. UNCE Convention on Long-Range Transboundary Air Pollution, the Climate and Clear Air Coalition, and the Convention of Biological Diversity are already addressing, in some extent, nitrogen management. But how integrated are they approach? The recent initiative to set a nitrogen target on having excess nitrogen loss by 2013 as part of the coming Montreal framework is highly ambitious. Calls for cooperation between various UN bodies and initiatives to ensure a unified approach in promoting sustainable nitrogen management. Particular attention should be given to nitrous oxide, which is the most underrated greenhouse gas. Significant progress may be achieved by including this nitrous oxide emission under the Montreal Protocol and focusing the attention of the climate and clear air coalition through it. Currently, a fully integrated perspective of nitrogen is being developed under United Nations Environment Program guidance through the Working Group of Nitrogen. I congratulate UNEP for this initiative and encourage future progress through close cooperation with and between member states toward achieving a significant reduction of nitrogen waste by 2013. Expectations are high. To achieve this goal, the UNEP Working Group on Nitrogen has a challenging mandate to facilitate the development and implementation of effective, integrated, sustainable nitrogen management actions at national level. A roadmap outlining the working group activities and delivers by 2030 is necessary, while the ongoing scientific support remain essential. I encourage UNEP to remain ambitious and to continue offering the member states a platform that facilitates and strengthens cooperation. The working group's activities have the potential to be further enhanced by a new resolution on sustainable nitrogen management. I am aware of the initiative of the government of Pakistan for a new resolution, and I wish Pakistan the best of luck in this effort. I trust that such initiative for a future resolution on nitrogen will keep rise awareness on nitrogen management. Thank you for your attention.
Well, okay, good afternoon, and my deepest thanks as well to Pakistan for organizing and hosting this side event and for inviting UNEP to speak. We've heard from previous speakers all the facts about nitrogen. I mean, not all the facts, there are deep scientific facts that we're missing, but the fact that it has an impact on climate change and it has an impact on biodiversity and human health. And therefore, the management of the resource, how we use it, and how we create a holistic policy to manage it is very central. And so I'll go directly on this point so that we can save time as well for the second panel and the more scientific inputs to the conversation. As we know, currently, many countries have nutrient-related policies, but these policies are fragmented and lack coherence. And therefore, it leads to a number of trade-offs between different forms of nutrient pollution, and it stops the adoption of a systemic and holistic policy for cleaner water, cleaner air, climate change mitigation, adaptation, and so on.
To manage this, we need a more holistic approach, multi-sectoral, transdisciplinary system-wide approach, and that will be guided by best practices in fertilizer application, by tackling the challenge of circularity, by bringing innovation, not only in technologies, but also in the working processes when we use nitrogen. And such approaches will bring multiple social and environmental benefits. Now, there is, and that's the good news, a push in this direction. We've heard it from the minister from Romania. There's a push that brings UNEP in the center of the equation through two resolutions that were adopted at UNEP. And the first resolution, which is called 4/14, called for an improved coordination of policies across the nitrogen cycle, and asked to explore options for better management to achieve sustainable development. And then a second resolution came 2 years ago that encouraged member states to accelerate actions to significantly reduce nitrogen waste. And I think there are indeed discussions about a new resolution at UNEA 7 in December that will again strengthen the governance that we have. Now, to build this governance, UNEP has organized a working group on nitrogen since 2020, and 6 of these meetings have taken place, bringing 96 member states around the table to discuss how we deliver on these promises of this resolution. UNEP is currently assisting the conversation, but also assisting directly 11 countries in developing plans to manage nitrogen. With ongoing support to Sri Lanka and Trinidad and Tobago, for example, to help them assess and monitor the nitrogen pollution in water and air, and to have the best practices for managing fertilizers, support the recovery and recycling of nutrients from wastewater, which is one of the solutions that we should really push. So we call on member states, on all parties, not only in the working group, but outside as well, to urgently take action to improve the management of the nitrogen cycle. And we believe that with the implementation of the 2 resolutions, we can promote an integrated approach, management and policy approach that will address the nitrogen cycle and have effect on climate change, on biodiversity, and will be positive because the road ahead needs to be ambitious, but the road is also achievable if we cooperate, if we bring this governance change, and with the cooperation of all stakeholders at all levels. So I do believe that there is a future for sustainable management of nitrogen, and this event is testimony to this and to the ambition that collectively we must have in achieving this goal. Thanks.
We have Dr. Abdul Wahid coming to give copies of the nitrogen strategy to our presenters. I think is that correct? Yes. This is Pakistan's nitrogen strategy. Those online, there's photographs taken. Thank you very much to all the speakers, and if they want, they can move to the chairs in the audience, because we're going to have a new panel here. I think that what we heard from all of the speakers was the issue of coherence across a number of different processes. The work that's already going quite well in certain certain places. The UNEP work is excellent. We have 3 major events next year where it will be great to link the nitrogen conversation. It's the UN summit, the food summit +4, the clearly UNFCCC COP30 and UNEA 7. And that will be, all of those will be in 2025 and will be probably in the last quarter. So we're going to have a very busy period. But we should continue these conversations across all of them to try and ensure that there is a coherent approach. So we've got 3 people who are going to talk to us a little bit more depth. So Professor Mark Sutton, he's the Director of the International Nitrogen Management System and UKRI. There's a lot of acronyms here. GCRF, South Asian Nitrogen Hub project, and is the co-chair of the Regional Commission, the Regional Economic Commission in Europe, task force on reactive nitrogen. Professor Sutton has a rich experience with UNEP in the GPA, responsible for the global overview on nitrogen management for UNEP nutrient world, and the spearheading of the international nitrogen management system for the emerging policy. He's coordinated many projects to address the net effect of nitrogen on the European greenhouse gas balance. Then we have Tarek Azur. Dr. Azur serves as the regional director for South Asia of the International Nitrogen Initiative and holds the position of associate professor of historical science at the University of Agriculture in Azerbaijan. He is the lead partner for Pakistan in the global project South Asia Nitrogen Hub, and is involved with UNEP GEF funded project International Nitrogen Management System. And as a lead editor, he has published Nitrogen Assessment Pakistan as a case study. He's also a member of the steering committee of the Global Partnership Nutrient Management Unit. And the final speaker is Irini Bislaldi. Irini is the global head of international affairs at Compassion in Farming, leads the organization's international work at the United Nations and all relevant global policy processes, focusing primarily on sustainable micro production, food systems, health, and antimicrobial resistance and nutrient waste and pollution. Prior to joining Compassion, she worked in public affairs and regulation of several multinational pharmaceutical. I remember I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Felix Dodds, and I'm an adjunct professor at the University of North Carolina and advisor to Compassion in Farming. So I'm going to ask Mark to speak, I think, for about 7 minutes, and then followed by Terry and by Irene. Mark, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Felix, and distinguished delegates, ministers, colleagues. It's a pleasure to join you in Baku in these important discussions. I think my number one message first off is it's clear that there's not enough attention to nitrogen in relation to climate change. We're very happy that we have been able to work together with the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, jointly with the International Nitrogen Management System, to launch this nitrous oxide assessment, the first global assessment of N2O in the last decade. It's bringing clear messages, as we've said, that managing nitrogen together is good for climate, it's good for biodiversity, good for air quality, water quality, and economy. So let's just put this into picture and start with really an image. Let's take an image of a loaf of bread. We all know a loaf of bread, we think it's carbohydrate. We know carbohydrate, we need it for food. But actually think a bit more, a loaf of bread is also protein, and that protein is critical to the nutrition of everybody eating it, that is not just carbohydrate, carbon and protein. Now, carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Protein, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. It's the amino acids that make the difference into those proteins. Now, a loaf of bread will not rise well unless it has enough protein in it. And actually, that's one of the reasons why wheat is given so much more fertilizer than barley and oats because the farmer wants to increase the protein content to get the loaf to rise really well. Wheat with a high protein content is good for making bread. But that puts a problem as well, because how much nitrogen should they be using? Is that high nitrogen associated with the waste of resources? And so instantly we're into the whole challenge of how much fertilizer, how much nitrogen from other sources, biological fixation, that's needed to grow our agricultural products well. Now, when we look at the nitrogen problem, much of it is agriculture. There's also fossil fuel causes of nitrogen oxides and nitrous oxide as well. It's a multi-dimensional problem, but agriculture is right in the middle of it. Now, we're not saying use less fertilizer. If we see a conversation about just use less fertilizer, we see a kickback saying, well, hang on a moment. No, we need to feed our crops. We need food security. But let's turn that around. And this is one of the messages from the emerging full international nitrogen assessment, which we're going to publish next year, is that you need to look at the reducing waste of nitrogen resources. Because as somebody has already said, 80% of the nitrogen that's going into the system is actually wasted. It's wasted to water pollution, to air pollution, to denitrification, to N2. So if we reduce that waste, then we can get our food outcomes with less resource. We can save money and be clean at the same time. Now, ultimately, if you waste less, you don't need so much fertilizer and you've got an opportunity to save money. But you see, it's different. We've not said reduce fertilizer. We've said reduce the waste. Now, the International Nitrogen Management System has recently launched its guidance document on measures for integrated sustainable nitrogen management. There's something like 150 different measures there, whether it's in agriculture, aquaculture, combustion sources, wastewater. There's a rich diversity of options ready to be used. So we see this very much as a message, not of fear, but of hope. And take the fear discussion, because one of the things that's happening out in the world is huge subsidies for agricultural products, often subsidizing fertilizers, meaning they're too cheap that farmers are not careful in how they use them. Now, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework has highlighted the need to reform such subsidies. And we need to do that very carefully, sympathetically, intelligently, and informed by the science. But essentially, our message is that nitrogen is really valuable. And if we waste it less, we'll be good for the economy and good for food production at the same time. To add this up, if we look at the world losing 200 million tons per year of nitrogen wasted resource, and we multiply that simply by the price of nitrogen at, let's say, $1.50 per kilogram nitrogen, that's $300 billion US a year worth of wasted resource. Halve nitrogen waste, save 150 billion. Now, in the international assessment, we'll also be coming up with numbers on the externality values of the value also from air pollution, water pollution, climate change, etc. And those numbers are even bigger. But what this means is it's worth investing in reducing nitrogen pollution. We call it nitrofinance, the idea that nitrofinance would be good for nitrogen, accelerate action, investing in measures that ultimately will save money. And we hope that this conversation needs to go forward. It's not just about climate finance, but nitrofinance is an opportunity for countries to make a difference. Now, there's one more elephant in the room not to be forgotten. And that is that until now, we've made nitrogen compounds to make fertilizer or through biological fixation to support agriculture. But in the future, there's this conversation about ammonia fuel, ammonia as a hydrogen carrier. Essentially, we don't want to burn fossil fuels, get rid of the carbon, burn hydrogen instead. But hydrogen is hard to transfer. So let's use ammonia and burn ammonia. That could see a tripling of world production of ammonia, tripling by 2050. That's a massive change with massive new risks. And that really needs to be addressed as well. And I think in this conversation towards a future resolution on sustainable nitrogen management, actions are needed together on that whole risks of ammonia fuel. So that's my message for now. There's lots more to be done, but thank you so much for Pakistan, Japan, Romania for leading this charge forward. And we look forward to working you in the years ahead.
Good evening, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much, the representatives from Japan and Romania and all of the audience who are online listening here. I would briefly discuss on the sustainable nitrogen management challenges and the opportunities for South Asia, because I'm also representing the National Nitrogen Initiative for the region. So very briefly, I will give some of the data because much has been said, why nitrogen is important, how we can abate nitrogen nitrous oxide emissions. And during this week, the global nitrous oxide assessment has been released. And I'm pleased that I'm one of the co-authors along with Mark in this global nitrous oxide assessment. Coming to South Asia, why it is important, why there is a need to tackle surge in nitrogen pollution. And we see we have about 1.9 billion people, means 25% of the globe resides in South Asia on only 4.8% of the land masses. So ecosystem services of the South Asia are under severe pressure. And the major challenges are climate change as well as the food security, because both are interlinked. And you will see during the last 10 to 15 years, Pakistan is among the top 10 countries who are vulnerable to the climate change. And it will see on the nitrogen, South Asia is a global hotspot for nitrogen emissions, and emission levels alarmingly has been increased during the past. For example, in our study South Asia Nitrogen Hub, we have discussed that nitrous oxide emissions and ammonia emissions from 2000 to 2015, just 15 years, 36% increase has been observed in the South Asia. And very alarmingly for NOx, more than 100% increase, So this is quite alarming. And if you see, that is the satellite data, ammonia emissions are high in the South Asia region. And one of the main sources of these nitrogen emissions is the agriculture sector. For example, if we just divide the emissions into different sectors, the nitrous oxides and ammonia, these are mainly from the agriculture sector, but for NOx, there are other sectors like buildings, transport, fossil fuels, energy, and the domestic. So the major shares to the global greenhouse gas emissions and also in the South Asia is agriculture sector. So we are more concerned with this. Of course, we have to cover the other sectors as well. And if we think that in fertilizer use, it has been increased tremendously since 1961 onwards. And if you compare the use efficiency of nitrogen, means what you are applying to the fields and what the crops are getting it, and what is the production level, it's very low as compared to the global average. And particularly if you see the Pakistan, about 30%, less than 30%. So means we are wasting 70% of the nitrogen we are adding to the soil. So 70% of the nitrogen which is being added is available to be released to the environment to pollute environment. So there is a need to search the nitrogen pollution within the country and within the region. There are major gaps and the challenges in the South Asia, particularly there is lack of insufficient economic incentives and marketing mechanisms for nutrient recovery and recycling. There is lack of data and research, and now South Asia Nitrogen Hub is working on the primary data as well, because earlier emissions of the earlier estimations were based only on the secondary data. And lack of coordination in the region as well, lack of regionally appropriate guidance for the better management of the nitrogen and the policies which are available. We have evaluated the regional policies, more than 1,000 policies within the South Asia, and all are fragmented. So South Asia is on the lead. South Asia is working, and we have placed that both of the resolutions in the UNEA was submitted by the South Asian country, and this is great. And there was Colombo Declaration, which says that we should halve the nitrogen waste by 2030, and then we hold World Environment Day in Pakistan hosted, and then GCRF, South Asia Nitrogen Hub. Then we are working with South Asia Cooperative Environment Policy Program, and hopefully in the next Governing Council of the SAQIP, the roadmap to South Asia will be adopted, hopefully, because it is under discussion and it is with the delegations now. And we are holding side events at various forums to highlight our efforts as well as the need to take the global attention and the development of the South Asia roadmap. So very briefly, some of the salient targets which were select based on their own circumstances, financial abilities, capacities. We need to reduce pollution from all means, all sources. We have to develop national action plans followed by the UN Resolution 5. And there is a need to improve public awareness, improvement in nitrogen use efficiency, and we need to cover more area under sustainable cropping systems, reduce NOx emissions from the industry and transport sector. Just you can see the air pollution in the South Asian countries. So establish standards of the nutrients, and we need to reduce pollution from marine sources and to increase the share of clean energy, regional cooperation on research and technology, waste recycling, and coordination, which is very much important, and identification and application of best nitrogen use and the management practices. And Mark has already said that we are going to launch these nitrogen mitigation strategies. More than 150 strategies are already available. We have categorized these strategies in various sectors on the basis of their robustness, the expertise needed, how they can reduce the emissions. So if we see the cost-benefit analysis, almost the benefit cost is 10 times more than the implementation cost of these strategies. So there's a huge, you can say, opportunity. And finally, there is no way to achieve the target of Paris Agreement and net zero without climate action on the nitrogen. And I would highly appreciate in the last two Ministry of Climate Change and Environmental Coordination for untiring efforts towards sustainable nitrogen management, following the South Asia roadmap and ambitions to national nitrogen action plans. Thank you very much. Ready, you please stop.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping you can hear me okay.
Yes, we hear you online.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so, well, first of all, let me start by thanking the distinguished panel of speakers who offered their perspectives today. I couldn't agree more than that nitrogen should be at the center of all climate discussions. As Felix said, I'm Irini Pizzilidi, the Global Head of International Affairs at Compassion in World Farming. And very briefly, for those of you who don't know CAWF, we are a farmer-founded NGO working on food systems with a focus on livestock production and its impact on animals and the environment. The CIWF International Affairs team works across the UN system at the science policy interface to create a sustainable, healthier, and higher welfare existence for humans, animals, and the planet. Now, as you probably have gathered for us being here, one of the issues we follow quite closely is nitrogen waste and pollution. We've worked on this issue with UNEP and UNEA, the United Nations General Assembly's second committee, FAO, here in the UNFCCC, and in the near future, we expect to expand our work on this issue in the CBD and the UNCCD processes. And we're also pleased to engage with the UNEA Working Group on Nitrogen, as well as UNEP's Global Partnership on Nutrient Management, and FAO's Livestock Environmental Assessment and Performance Partnership as members of their steering committees. These forums are effective in enabling the multi-sectoral attitude we need on issues like nitrogen pollution, because as we've heard so clearly today, sustainable nitrogen management requires an interlinked and transboundary approach that is implemented through truly collaborative solutions. Now, our interest in sustainable nitrogen management stems from two areas mainly. Firstly, almost half of the world's croplands are used today to feed animals reared largely in industrial systems. To produce these feed crops, vast amounts of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers are used. However, we know that the majority of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers is lost to air in the form of nitrous oxide emissions, for example, or to water through runoffs from agricultural fields, and as such, ends up being transferred into natural ecosystems or is otherwise wasted. With this, health, environmental, and financial implications come. Secondly, industrial livestock production in particular comes with its own set of nitrogen-related problems at the farm level. Examples, just to name a few examples, include manure management problems, ammonia, particulate matter concentration, and of course, air and water pollution that comes with these. Now, through our work with governments in the United Nations, we know changes to our agri-food systems can make the livestock sector part of the solution in safeguarding our climate, but also ecosystems, soils, and lands. So we know we must embrace technology and innovation, but we must also recognize through this process that traditional and indigenous knowledge, agroecology, have been the original innovation and still hold a lot of relevance today in the way we do things and deserve to be protected and scaled up. And when we talk about sustainable nitrogen management, we need both immediate, tangible changes to achieve more efficient nitrogen use and nutrient recovery, as well as longer-term transformational changes that include both the obvious but also the less obvious, including, for instance, indirect changes such as behavioral shifts related to our diets, especially in populations where we know we overconsume animal-sourced foods. Ultimately, it's not just about how we produce our food, but also what foods we eat and how much of them we consume. And put simply, when it comes to sustainable nitrogen management, we all have a role to play. At present, when we think about the issue of sustainable nitrogen management, we mostly focus on talking about agri-food systems and how we can transform them or reducing industrial emissions. But the more CAWF has been engaged in this space, the more we're observing a fast-growing interest in the use of nitrogen, particularly in the energy sector with green ammonia, which also Mark mentioned. We know this could triple or quadruple nitrogen use worldwide, and with this, perhaps triple or quadruple the urgency to find global and collaborative approaches to effectively deal with nitrogen waste and pollution. The title of today's event includes the words collaborative solutions, and that is exactly what we need moving forward. Now, we know the problem of nitrogen waste and pollution is global, and we all need to work together to achieve a level of political will, coordination, and a range of solutions that are context-specific and can be implemented at the national level. So we are actively looking to partner with governments, academics, the private sector, farmers, other stakeholders, to best advance and coordinate sustainable nitrogen management in various global policy instruments. Before closing, I would like to commend the governments here today who have been vanguards in addressing the nitrogen use. We would certainly welcome and will work towards a broader coalition of countries looking to collaborate, coordinate, and accelerate action in tackling this issue from global to national level, here in the UNFCCC and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're coming towards the end. I would just say we have a reception after this. So if you're feeling hungry or whatever, then do stay. We're going to the final remark will be made in a minute with Arif Gerha. He's the Executive Director of the Global Change and Environment Coordination and Ministry of Climate Change in Pakistan, and is a distinguished expert in renowned for his profound contributions to climate change science and policy. He is currently leading the Global Climate Change Impact Studies Center research on the Ministry of Climate Change and Coordination. I would ask him to come up and make the final remarks. And I think you all agree this has been a very rich side event with lots of information, which shows how far we've come in the last 2 years as far as moving nitrogen up the agenda.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and respected delegates, as we conclude this significant side event on sustainable nitrogen management, collaborative solutions for climate action, and food security, I want to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who contributed to today's insightful and inspiring discussion. I would also like to acknowledge the unwavering support of the government of Japan and Romania, whose participation today reflects their commitment to international cooperation in addressing nitrogen challenges. I am thankful to Mr. Yutaka and Mr. Cassini for their commitment and support to sustainable nitrogen management. Special thanks to Mr. Bruno Pozzi from United Nations Environment Program for his critical insight towards nitrogen pollution reduction. Participation of representatives from FAO and UNFCCC is greatly appreciated, particularly for their critical roles in advancing global climate and sustainability agendas. Ladies and gentlemen, I extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished speakers for their thoughtful and presentations. Your expertise and passion have greatly enriched our understanding of nitrogen management as a global priority. I'm thankful to Dr. Mark Sutton for your leadership in sustainable nitrogen management at global level and for your compelling talk today. Thankful to Dr. Tariq Aziz for highlighting the unique challenges and opportunities in South Asia in your presentation on sustainable nitrogen management. Thanks to Ms. Erini for her engaging presentation. We need to talk about nitrogen solutions for climate, nature, and health. You have rightly emphasized the urgency of the need of action. Special thanks to our organizers and sponsors, including the International Nitrogen Initiative, International Nitrogen Management System, South Asia Nitrogen Hub, UNEP, Global Compassion in World Farming. Your dedication has been instrumental in the success of this event. I'm thankful to University of Agriculture for their remarkable contributions to this research. As we look forward, Pakistan is committed to submitting a third resolution on sustainable nitrogen management at UNIA 7, building upon the momentum created by the previous resolutions led by South Asia. We must not lose sight of the need for sustained efforts and investment, capacity building, resource mobilization, and robust policy frameworks are pivotal in ensuring that developing regions have the tools and support necessary to address nitrogen management and challenges most effectively. In conclusion, I extend my deepest appreciation to all the participants who joined online and in person for their engagement and valuable contributions. Your insightful ideas will serve as the foundation for future collaborations and actions. Thank you once again for your participation, and I really look forward to seeing many of you as partners in advancing this vital cause. Safe travels and best wishes. Thank you.